Okay, we're on.
Calling to order the special council work session of January 18th, 2023. Please call the roll.
Mr. Knoll?
Here.
Ms. Zatron? Here. Ms. Weltman? Here. Mr. Daga?
Here.
Mr. Lemay?
Here.
Mr. Gentili?
Here.
Dr. Wong? Here.
Good evening, everybody. Could you please join me in the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and good evening to everyone for this, our first meeting of 2023. We made it. It's kind of fun for some of us. It's our 12th year that we begin today. Yeah. So welcome to everyone. Even the people who no longer can be called new. You're no longer new. You're responsible for your actions.
No excuses anymore.
Okay? You're responsible.
Don't give up. I'm playing that gig for 10 years.
All
We
right.
haven't been buying it for 9 months.
All right. We are honored this evening to begin this first session of the City Council with the guest and of Senator Jerry Serino. For those of you who don't know Jerry already, I've had the privilege of meeting with him on several occasions already. On one morning, the senator came by and we spent a couple hours here in Pepper Pike, just meeting, talking about things, and I think we have a wonderful new representative on our behalf, of course, Senator Yuko through redistricting and aging out, if you would, term limits. Term limits, not aging out, term limits. He was no longer.
He was close
here.
on both counts, but.
Anyway, so the senator has been trying to go around to all of his district and meet with the various city councils, meet with the populations and residents, and it's our privilege to have him here tonight. Jerry says he'd like to just present some remarks, make himself available for Q&A, and I turn the floor over to you, Senator.
Great, well, thank you. Just okay if I just sit here? Is
You
that-
can sit
okay?
there, that's fine.
Well, thanks, Mayor and members of council and staff. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. You have a lot of motions to confirm tonight, so I won't take up too much of your time. I'm
Feel
sure
free to
you're
take as
anxious
much
to get
time
to
as you
them.
want.
Great. And it's great to be here. As the mayor said, I've been getting around to the district, the new parts of my district since really summertime. And unfortunately, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I'm usually in Columbus, so I was not able to get here sooner, but I'm happy to be here. I've known Steve. Steve was a toddler when I first met him, so which gives you an idea what my age is, but we've known each other for a long time, and he represents a number of different political subdivisions, so we will have that opportunity to continue that relationship. I wanted to just take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about your new senator. I won't go into too much detail because that'll put you to sleep, but you need to know, and you deserve to know, who is representing you in Columbus. You only have one senator. And so the redistricting process finished last May. It was a long story, and I won't even bother getting into all of that with you, but we were not asked what our districts were supposed to look like. We just kind of were handed them. And so my former district, until the end of December of last year, included most of Lake County, all of Portage County, and most of Geauga County. And that has changed. Now, I no longer have anything in Portage or in Geauga. I have all of Lake County, where my wife and I live in Kirtland, and the most of the eastern and southern communities of Cuyahoga County. And, I was actually, well, it's different for me, certainly. When I was given that assignment for the new district, I was actually delighted. I grew up in Cuyahoga County. I grew up in a place called Little Italy, where many of you have been to restaurants, I'm sure. But I grew up there in the 50s and 60s, and went to grade school and high school in Cleveland. So I'm really kind of a Cuyahoga County person, and I'm very comfortable in the county. I've already spent time with Chris Ronayne, the county newly elected county executive, and met with the mayor of Cleveland, even though Cleveland is not in my district, but we're going to be doing things for Northeastern Ohio, and we need to work as a team. So the new district, again, is comprised of cities and villages and townships. And my background is not traditional or typical for elected officials. I didn't run for office until I was 65. My wife tells me she was waiting for me to mature, for me to run for office. We'll see if the jury's still out on that, I suppose. But I was a business guy and in medical devices and distribution for most of my career. One of the local companies, some of you may remember, was Picker X-Ray or Picker International. Changed its name a few times. I was the chief operating officer there, and we sold that company to Philips Medical back in 2001. And then I went and did a number of other ventures and was CEO of 4 or 5 other medical device companies. And my wife and I have 9 children. We were busy raising children. I was traveling internationally. I never had time for public policy, although I was always interested in it. And so I sold my last business in Buffalo, and our last child went away to college. I thought I have time now to engage in public policy because I really always was interested. And so I ran for county commissioner and won a primary and won the general election. Really enjoyed that job, and it really got me in touch with local governments, which a lot of people in the legislature unfortunately don't have. And Steve knows this. Lake County is a very interesting and different kind of a county, 230,000 people, and big cities and lots of townships and villages to deal with. And I really and I worked very closely with the mayors and managers of those political subdivisions to really understand what their needs are and to provide the services necessary from a policy standpoint. I was never intending to run for the Senate. It was going to Columbus after traveling around the world. Schlepping to Columbus was not something I had on my agenda. But I was approached by some people, and they were pretty convincing that I needed to do that. John Eklund, who previously had the 18th district, was a colleague of Kenny Yuko's, was turned out, and they asked me to do it. And I investigated it for quite a while and decided that it was the right thing to do. That I really could influence public policy in much greater way in Columbus as a senator than I can as a county commissioner, even though I loved that job. It was great. So I just finished my second year, my first half of my first term. We have 2 4-year consecutive terms that you're allowed to have. And we operate not to get partisan, but it's just so you know that in the 33 senators that we have, the majority has 27 seats. So we have enjoyed a majority there for 37 or 38 years. And it allows us to get a lot of policy done. And so the key for representing a district is not only constituent services, which we do a lot of. I have office staff that are there to answer constituents' questions, ranging from somebody has a problem with ODOT, somebody is their liquor license, a business can't get their liquor license in time. We get phone calls for everything. And part of our job is to run interference with various state agencies, which sometimes can be very difficult to navigate through, particularly when they're not working in the offices. When they're remote, it's even more challenging to try to get answers to questions and so on. But we do a lot of constituent services. We do services of similar nature for the elected officials in the subdivisions. And of course, we obviously like to get your input when it comes to legislation. I spent a lot of time in the past talking with fire chiefs, police chiefs, safety directors. Most of the mayors are safety directors, as you are here, right? And so if we're passing bills that relate to those particular subjects, I don't sit in my office and decide what to do. I talk with people who have a vested interest in experience in these areas. And that's I think, the best way to represent a constituency. One of the other ways that I can support and assist my district is with the committees that I serve on. Because a lot of really important work gets done in the committees before things even get to the floor. By the time something gets to the floor of the Senate, it's virtually a done deal, okay? Or it wouldn't have gotten to the floor in the first place. And so I'm delighted to tell you that I've gotten phenomenal committee assignments for this next 2 years now. I'm going to be vice chair of the Finance Committee, which helps determine how the $74 billion biennium budget gets spent and which projects get supported. And Rich, Mayor and I have talked about some projects already that it's going to be time pretty soon to start lining those up. I'm going to be chairman of the Higher Ed and Workforce Committee. I've been vice chairman for 2 years. Higher education is a top priority of mine. And we need to do a lot of things to do a better job of delivering not only access, but the right kind of services to our students and families who are paying dearly for college education. And so I've been working very closely with the chancellor. I passed a major bill last year. It was Senate Bill 135, which was in the chancellor's mind, in the chancellor's words, the most comprehensive higher ed reform bill in 40 years in Ohio. And we got that done, and it passed the House unanimously. So it's a bipartisan bill, and it got all but one vote in the Senate. And so that was pretty good, and I was very satisfied with that. We're working on the next bill that is going to take the next steps to improve the product that we deliver in terms of higher education. We spend as taxpayers a lot of money on higher education. The 14 universities that are taxpayer supported in Ohio and 23 community colleges, that's what we have purview over. And we care a lot about it, and we know we can do better. Not just with access, but we have to make sure that the programs that the universities and community colleges are offering are meeting the needs of the businesses that need to hire people. And as you all know, I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't know, businesses are struggling everywhere in all disciplines to get people, to find the right people. And we have to make sure that we're, philosophy majors are wonderful. I was one of those at one time, but we need machinists, we need CNC operators, we need people doing lots of jobs that are not necessarily 4-year degree programs. And we as parents actually also have to, reform how we think that not everybody needs to go to a 4-year school. And so we're trying to develop those. The governor has been very supportive of our programs. He has a lot of ideas of his own. We have the State of the State coming up on the 31st of this month, and I'm sure he'll be talking about workforce development because that's a critical issue, as well as his primary issue, which is mental health, which he teed up last year, and he'll be reporting on more this year. I'm also the only senator that has another senator in his district as a constituent. So Matt Dolan, who was not your guy before, but was in the surrounding areas, because he's only got 2 years left, the way they drew the maps, he doesn't live in his district. So he lives in Chagrin Falls, which is now in my district. So I've got one constituent that I know is going to give me a hard time whenever he can. We're also looking at making sure that we manage our budget well. We happen to be blessed right now with almost a $3 billion rainy day fund. It just came out yesterday. We've never had anything like that. Part of that is because of COVID dollars, federal dollars that we got, although we've distributed, quite a bit of that as well. But we also have to make sure that with that much cash on hand, that we're keeping enough aside for, who knows what the future is going to hold with recessions and other things that we might experience. So we want to make sure that we work closely with the governor and Will on the new budget coming up, making sure that we are responsible from a fiscal standpoint. Because it's very tempting to spend all that money on lots of things, and particularly things that are not one-time spends. If you put it into people that are going to be recurring expenses, somewhere down the road, you're going to pay the piper, and we don't want to be caught in that position. Generally speaking, I will tell you that I will characterize how I like to work is supporting families and businesses in the state of Ohio and in my district. If we don't have a strong economy and strong businesses, that we can't simply provide the kinds of safety net services that so many people in the state of Ohio need. So we have to have a good economy here. A bad economy means that we can do less for people who are in need. And so that's really a focus of mine. And, you know, we want to make good decisions. We want to be responsible. We want to make sure that Ohio is a great place to do business. You all are aware of Intel coming to Ohio. I think everybody's pretty much heard that. So it's east of Columbus. I drove the area that they are going to be building. They're tearing farmhouses down left and right to make room for this Intel facility, which will be the largest chip making facility in the world, right here in Ohio, which is a great feather in our cap to have. And it will attract other businesses. My interest is in making sure that Northeast Ohio gets its fair share of those kinds of developments, right? We couldn't have handled what Intel needs up here in Northeast Ohio. But there are smaller businesses that are going to look to come to Ohio, and we want to make sure that Northeastern Ohio gets its fair share of attention and investment. And I can tell you that as a Cleveland person, you know, in Columbus, there's this like kind of bubble that Columbus is for a lot of folks in both parties. You know, there's a lot of thought about what's happening in Columbus. Columbus is growing. Franklin County is growing. You know, we're not growing to that extent here. So it's very easy for people who don't live up here to forget about what goes on here up there by the lake. And so one of my tasks is to make sure that I remind my colleagues constantly, and my committee assignments are going to be very helpful in doing that, to make sure that we are not only not forgotten, that we come to mind first when it comes to all the great things that we have to offer up here. And if we can make sure that we can provide the employees, businesses will come here. But if they don't think they can have access to the right, well-trained people in the quantities that they need, they're going to go someplace else. And we want to make sure that doesn't happen. And again, generally supporting local government. I love working with mayors and city managers. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where services are provided to the people who live in these communities. You will find that I will be very, very much in touch with all of the mayors, excuse me, that are in my District 18. I want to hear from all of you and members of council as well. And, you know, I need to know what your needs are. We have the budget coming up here. The last thing I'll bring up is the budget, which is a biennium budget that we do, which is about $74 billion. And every representative and every senator gets to submit amendments for projects in their district, sometimes even out of the district. I supported some Cleveland initiatives, you know, like the food bank and so on, because they're important for the general area. But if you have projects that you would like to submit, I can never guarantee that they will get approved, but I lobby very hard for the projects in my constituency. 2 years ago in my first budget, I submitted 20 budget projects. Some of my colleagues submitted over 200. You can't possibly know them well and be able to defend them, because that's what you have to do. But I only submitted 20, and I got almost everything I asked for, because I kept it to a reasonable amount. I didn't task the committee, the finance committee at the time, with dealing with all these extraneous projects. So we'll go through a process, and I'll work with the mayor in your office to get the projects in that you want, make sure the asks are reasonable, and then we'll get them on the list, and I will work them very hard for you. Again, I never guarantee that a project will be approved. It would be wrong for me to do that, but I will guarantee that I will work hard for your project, because, you know, this is an important thing for you. So that's kind of my general overall introduction. My wife and I have 9 kids and 37 grandchildren, and they all live in Ohio. So we've kept everybody in Ohio, and it's a virtual voting block in Lake County. Some of them are actually in college and old enough to vote now, but the toddlers we haven't figured out how to get them to vote. But we're very invested in the community here in Northeastern Ohio, and have a long history here. And I look forward to serving this community as well. So I'd be happy to answer any questions or any comments that you would like to make? Anything on your mind?
Well, I'll just loosen it up by kicking off.
Okay.
As the father of two sons who live out of state with their families, there's nothing I would like better than for Ohio to become a place that's attractive for them to return to.
Right.
Which is right now a struggle.
It is.
So I commend you for your commitment to the different policies and prospects that you've discussed. My one son, who does medical research in part to his medical practice, he's commented on the lack of support for some of the major research facilities up here in northeastern Ohio. That doesn't, and it's wonderful that the clinic is now building these two towers that will be research oriented. And that sort of, and the support of the state as well as the feds for that sort of program, so that it'll attract these brilliant minds back to this region to want to be here.
Right.
That's really a key to this overall development of the economic base here in northeastern Ohio. Thank you for your comments regarding, whatever is going to reflect in the future as our version of the Intel project.
Yeah,
because we really need that.
We do. And we have we have such a great environment up here. I mean, the cost of living is tremendous. I've relocated over the course of my almost 50-year career in business. I've relocated a lot of people to Cleveland, and there were times when it was very difficult to do that. But once we got, if it was a couple, we got the couple here together and took them around over a weekend and talked about the orchestra, talked about Blossom and all the things we have, versus just a ride from the airport through downtown, which back in many decades, downtown was not a pleasant thing to drive them through. That people are really attracted to this area. There's a lot that we have to offer. The medical care, healthcare you can't do much better unless you live next door to the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota. So we have a lot of good things. Cost of living, we have some great colleges and universities. We have a great community college system where you can get a good education, at least the first 2 years if you are bound to a 4-year, very inexpensively and very close to home. But we have to sell that, and we have to stop the exodus of students after we educate them to leave Ohio in numbers that are compared to our surrounding states. Michigan, Indiana, and Illinois. They don't lose as many as we do. And we like to start, keeping ours here and stealing some of theirs. That's the old competitive spirit. But we've got to work hard to make sure this is an attractive area where companies won't come and people won't stay.
Well, thankfully we have Lake Erie, and Lake Erie, I believe, is going to be the economic salvation of this region.
Absolutely.
Because it attracts back all that industry that fled with the invention of air conditioning down to the Southwest.
Yeah, absolutely. So your comments are well taken. We need to make sure our policies meld together in an integrated fashion so that we covering all the bases here, because we can offer tax incentives for companies to come here. We can offer lots of financial things. We have to have workers. We have to have good housing for their people to be able to live in and have access to. So it's an equation with many variables, and we have to work on all of them.
Well, Pepper Pike is here for them to come with.
Well, let's work together on economic development. I'm happy to do that.
Looking forward to it.
Great. Well, thank you. Yes, sir.
I have a question, Senator.
Yes.
A few years ago, we had an incident where a provision was pushed in the budget where Hunting Valley would have been, I guess, immune from paying school taxes here for Orange.
Right.
And it was luckily caught at a very late stage, and governor had vetoed that particular item.
Right.
Were you involved in it, and in what capacity?
No,
How
it
were
was-
you aware of it?
I'm aware of it. Believe me, when I met with the mayor of Orange, I was well aware of it. So I was not in the legislature at that time,
Oh, I
so I
see.
had nothing to do with it. Happy to say, but and I think the issue was that they wanted to have the ability to pull us away and join West Geauga. I think was the school.
No.
No,
It
was
was not,
Not be any part of any.
It is
school
what-
district.
To pay like per
I
student.
know they were,
They want to pay
yeah.
per student.
So I think there's been other discussions around, there's other discussions around the states of some communities that want to be able to pick and choose which school system neighboring school system they join. So that's another issue, but I was not involved with that. The governor did line item, the governor has for the budget, he has line item veto authority. And that was one of the line items that he vetoed. So I don't expect that will ever come up again.
Well, we were, I was on the school board.
Okay,
We worked really hard to get advocacy to stop that because it happened kind of at the 11th hour overnight.
right,
They couldn't have gone to West Jog, it wouldn't have saved them any money. So, I mean, because Orange has a very low tax rate.
right.
So it was really just, to opt out of being a part of a public school system.
Right.
And it was a very challenging, very fraught time for this community.
I remember I read about it. I was not involved at the time, but it's, again, I don't suspect that that's ever going to come
I
up.
guess I'm gonna put you in the spot. If same matter were to come up, what would you do?
I have to say, I don't know enough about all of the details that were surrounding that particular issue, so I'm not begging off the question. But, I don't know enough about it, except, at 50,000 feet. And, I work closely with school superintendents. I meet with them regularly because that's an important part of, of our economy and getting our future workers, properly educated as they go up here. So I spent a lot of time with school superintendents and have gotten lots of dollars. I was very involved in last year's budget, or 2 years ago budget, where we attempted to begin remedying the problem that we had with the lack of constitutionality with how schools are being funded, right? I think that goes back to 2003 or 4, maybe, when that was declared unconstitutional. And so what we did was, and we worked closely with the superintendents, I did in my district anyway, making sure that we understood that the idea was that we wanted to make sure that, because of the variations in property tax values and so on in different communities, in my old district, I had Painesville. Painesville is not the greatest place in a county from an education standpoint. There's 2 high schools, Riverside and what's the other one called? Harvey. And so, students deserve, I don't care what your zip code is, students deserve around Ohio a high quality education, right? So we made some adjustments, and not only did we put more money into K through 12, we also made in the formulas for what the schools get, we made some adjustments for socioeconomic circumstances in the community so that the schools that were struggling more and had lower property tax values were able to get a little bit more to be able to offset some of that. And I think it was a very fair way to do it. It was not the end game, but it was the first pass. And I suspect we will see in the new budget that we're going to work on in a few months, that we'll see some additional changes being made to the formula.
Well, I think the key to what you just said is you talk to a lot of superintendents, and I encourage you to keep doing that, obviously.
Mhm.
And I think the stress for a community such as ours, which has education at the highest common denominator,
Right.
is that a new funding program doesn't create a leveling to bring everyone down to a middle common or a lower common denominator.
Right.
That the program, the funding needs to lift everyone, not diminish those who are already succeeding.
Correct, yeah. We didn't treat it as a zero-sum game. We treated it as we needed to put more money into K through 12,
Right.
first of all. But we did want to make some adjustments for fairness for some communities that are really just never going to see, Painesville is just not going to have the property tax values that you have here. And yet the kids that live there deserve the same kind of education, and we want to try to make that happen
Right.
as best we can.
And that same philosophy leads right into what is probably could be one of the major issues that you're going to confront in your budget process, if I understand, is a review of the municipal income tax system. And if that becomes, as some are suggesting, part of this budget process, that what we'd encourage is that there's a lot of listening and conversation with the mayors of this region.
Right.
So that any changes, whether any changes are even necessary,
Right.
are first well discussed and vetted, so that in no way you am I suggesting,
Yeah.
but others, perhaps other downstate folks, may
Right.
want to just start re-rigging the way the thing, not rigging in a bad way, but readjusting the way the municipal program works for townships that populate this state overall.
Right.
And that it's to the harsh detriment of the functioning of a community like ours, or the city of Cleveland, and everything that surrounds us here. That it is it's like old plumbing. You pull on one thing, you're gonna spring a big leak over here.
It's a big issue.
And we just look forward to having a real dialogue about it.
Mayor, you know, from the comments that I made when I met with the mayors and managers group.
Right.
Out in, was that in Brexville? Yeah, it was in Independence. That, you know, I'm on the Ways and Means Committee, which would handle that issue. And back 2 years ago, when we were dealing with legislation that started before I got there, but it had to be renewed a little bit in terms of the ability to apply for refunds if you were working at home and no longer in the city where your company is. And I did my best. I actually got it extended. I couldn't get what I wanted, which was the full 2002, but I worked very hard to get that. And I'm on record already, you know, not supporting any changes to how income tax is collected, how it's assessed, or anything. It's up to you under your home rule provisions to determine that yourselves.
We appreciate that, and I certainly, on behalf of my fellows at the Mayors and Managers Association, invite you to come back again and speak to the whole group in a more, that was an introductory session for some.
Right.
To address the whole thing, to work with our municipal tax committees and things like that. We'd love to, you know, have you and Senator Dolan be,
Right.
you know, a real intimate part of that process.
Absolutely. I mean, my being on Ways and Means Committee is critical. There's only 4 people on the committee. And so nothing's going to pass with any objections. So,
Well, I
we'll
think
be
we're lucky to
watching.
have you there as our voice.
great. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I'd just like to mention, I had a long career in Hunting Valley, 16 years, and my sources tell me that they haven't given up on the idea of withdrawing from the Orange school system. So keep your antenna up, and maybe you could have a conversation with that other senator who's a constituent of yours, who was instrumental in bringing that to into the budget.
Right. Okay. I will.
I don't know for sure, but there's still rumblings there, and the people who were behind it are pretty insistent. So
People can want a lot of things, but getting them is
I
a
can't believe
different
they
story.
got it. I can't believe they got it in there the first time.
Yeah.
It's so unfair, but they did.
Okay. Anything else?
If you don't mind,
Yeah, sure.
Mr. Wesker.
First, I have a facetious question. You said you were CEO of Baker. If I check that out, will I find out you were really the CEO of Baker?
I'm sorry. I want to make sure I understood.
Santos issue.
He was asking if you were really the
If
CEO.
you're
of Baker.
embellishing.
No, chief operating. Oh, I'm not like that congressman in New York. Is that what you're referring to?
But I will tell you that in that job, you were an international globetrotter. And as you know, Cleveland has a lot of disadvantages from an international business standpoint. And some of it being, you have an airport where you can't get there from here.
Right.
And a number of other issues. So are you looking at addressing any of those?
I am. As a matter of fact, you mentioned the airport. I had lunch with Mayor Bibb last week and Chris Roney, the county executive, and we talked about airports. Because I believe for a long time that Burke should not be an airport. Okay, it's the biggest waste of lakefront property that I can imagine. Okay. And Chicago solved that problem a long time ago by taking Miggs Field, and the mayor couldn't get council to agree with him. There's no lessons in this one, Mayor, but he ended up just digging holes through the runway so nobody could use it. So that's how we got rid of the airport eventually. But you know, Richmond Heights or the Cuyahoga County Airport has capacity. And Cleveland Airport, I think they're planning to, the mayor said he's got some really aggressive plans in mind. You know, the B terminal, which was the shorter, smaller planes. D terminal, sorry. I use D terminal a lot for domestic flights, and they're gonna tear that building down and do some other things. So he knows that that airport is an issue for our economic future in Cleveland. And if they can, you know, maybe move some of the corporate jets over to Cuyahoga County and even out to Lost Nation, it's a smaller runway, but they can do it to some extent. That we need to have a functional airport, and we need to bring back some flagship airlines so that you can have fewer connections out of Cleveland to just about anywhere. I traveled back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I traveled a lot. And Cleveland was great. It was a continental hub. You know, you could go anywhere internationally from here. I flew to the UK a lot from Cleveland, directly from Cleveland into Gatwick Airport. So if we don't have a functional airport, it's what, you know, in that equation I told you about, that's one of the elements in the equation, that if we don't have good transportation, starting with the airport, our economic future will not be very bright. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Thank you.
I will let you get back to business.
Thank you very much, Senator.
Thank you
for being
My
here.
pleasure. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
I believe that may have been the first senator we had visit. Next, we are going to move on to approval of the council minutes of December 10th, 22, 21st, and 28th. And we start with the 10th. We have a motion.
So moved. I'll do second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any, roll call, please.
Mr. Knoll?
Yes.
Ms. Atruk?
Yes.
Ms. Wellman?
Yes.
Mr. Daga?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Gentile?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
Yes.
And moving on to the minutes of December 21st. We have a motion.
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any, roll call, please.
I think she can still vote.
I do not.
Oh,
Can you walk me through another meeting?
Sorry.
Yeah, do you want to abstain then? Okay, got it. Hold on a minute, sorry.
Wait.
Okay, roll call.
Roll
Mr.
call
Knoll?
on the 21st.
Yes.
Ms. Atruk?
Yes.
Ms. Weltman?
Abstain.
Mr. Daga?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Gentile?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
Yes.
And finally, the minutes of December 28th. Motion, please.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
Abstain from the wrong meeting.
The second one, the 28th?
Good,
No,
the
it's so
28th.
fast. You're okay.
Okay,
She'll let you change your vote.
I could, yeah, I'll move it over to the
Record her
next.
vote. as I
Got
guess.
it.
I was at
Okay,
Roll call on the 28th.
Mr. Knoll?
Yes.
Ms. Atruk?
Yes.
Ms. Weltman?
Abstain.
Mr. Daga?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Gentile?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
All right. We're now moving ahead. Over the last year, I want to thank Councilman Lemay for his excellent service.
It was a grueling year of vice
As our vice
mayorship.
mayor.
And our new vice mayor needs to know how needy the mayor is, all the things he's asking, calling constantly.
It is a burden, I understand, but someone has to prop me up. So with that, again, thank you to Mr. Lemay, and we would entertain a motion. I would like to suggest that Mr. Daga be elevated to the position of vice mayor. for the
So
coming
moved.
year. Thank you, Mr. Lemay.
Didn't want to hesitate there, otherwise.
The crown slipped off his head so quick. Can we have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Knoll?
Yes.
Ms. Atruk?
Yes.
Ms. Weltman?
Yes.
Mr. Daga?
Abstain.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes,
Mr. Gentile?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
Yes.
good luck.
I'll take care of all the vices. Anybody wants vices, come to me. I will provide them.
now move on to,
Sorry,
it's my suggestion that we are simply going to roll over our commitments in general from last year and continue on. The next position would be to elect a member of council to the City Planning Commission, which was Ms. Waldman. We have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Knoll?
Yes.
Ms. Atruk?
Yes.
Ms. Weltman?
Is it customary to abstain? Abstain.
Mr. Daga?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Gentili?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
Yes.
And next, we need a motion for a Director of Public Safety that I have served in the past, but I'll leave it to the motion.
So moved.
I have a quick question. I know that, some constituents have asked me, like, why is the mayor, the safety director, and who are the other potential candidates that we think of? So I think it's important to possibly deliberate this, because it's a paid position, and of course, you've done a great job, superb job as our safety director. But I think due diligence requires us to simply ask if there are any possible candidates that could, serve as this, or what's.
It's a fair enough question. I'll explain the role. How's that? How's that for
Sounds
beginning? The role of the safety director is to interact and assist the mayor in managing the positions, the departments of fire and police. And in most communities, unless you're talking about a very large city, a city of Cleveland type thing, the role generally falls upon the mayor to perform. And it was created by council 10-ish years ago, somewhere around there. And I've served as a safety director. If you wish to nominate either anyone, the floor is open to any nomination, and would be up to council then.
What's the salary of the safety, what do they do, what do they over?
The salary is currently
$27,500.
$27,500 is the salary. All right.
And that was established in 2018.
Are there any nominations from anyone for this position? We need to fill it.
Okay, we had a motion from
I have-
Romano.
We don't have a second yet.
We do not have a second.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Knoll?
Yes.
Ms. Atruk?
Yes.
Ms. Weltman?
Yes.
Mr. Daga?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Gentili?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
Yes.
Next, we move to the confirmation of committee appointments, the chair of road infrastructure, which would continue on to be Mr. Knoll. Could we have a nomination, please?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Knoll?
Abstain.
Ms. Atruk?
Yes.
Ms. Weltman?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Daga? Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Gentili?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
Yes.
And the finance chair is currently held by Mr. Lemay. Can we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any other nominations from the floor? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Knoll?
Yes.
Ms. Atruk?
Yes.
Ms. Weltman?
Yes.
Mr. Daga?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Abstain.
Mr. Gentili?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
Yes.
Next, we have an alternate trustee of the Chagrin River Watershed Partners. Mr. Newell has served in that role for the last year. Do we have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any other I assume that was for Mr. Newell. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Roll call, please.
Mr. Knoll?
Abstain.
Ms. Atruk?
Yes.
Ms. Weltman?
Yes.
Mr. Daga?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Gentili?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
Next, we need to confirm the reappointment of Robert Smith to the Architectural Board of Review. Mr. Smith has very ably and conscientiously served in this position. I can inform you all for the last 6 years, I believe. And I would suggest that we reappoint Bob, who said he would be happy to accept the nomination and appoint.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Wolf,
Yes.
Ms. Zatrek,
Yes.
Ms. Weltman,
Yes.
Mr. Daga,
Yes.
Mr. Lemay,
Yes.
Mr. Gentili.
Yes.
Dr. Wong.
Next, we are going to have an executive session. And I'd entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of discussing the purchase or sale of real estate.
Okay, so I'll second it, but I just have one question. Will there be any other business?
There will be
After
no,
this?
after we reconvene, there will be no other further business discussed in the public session before we adjourn to the meeting. So,
Can I just ask one question
Yes.
before? I know we have a road infrastructure meeting on Monday, so we might want to announce that to the public.
That there's.
yes, there is a road and thank you, Dr. Wong. There is a road and infrastructure meeting this coming Monday at 7:30 in these chambers
In the morning.
in the morning. And there is a schedule that's being circulated, because we do appreciate the difficulty that Dr. Wong has in attending certain things early in the morning with her schedule. So we're trying to do something many months in advance to do it. This meeting is necessary because Mr. Sheedy wants to get out to bid as soon as we can with our streets program this year. And if we can get this meeting accomplished, we can get that taken care of. And Don can start preparing those street bids. Okay?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
may we encourage the public to take the community survey as long as we're
Oh, of
making
course.
quick announcements?
Of course. In the spirit of making some announcements, we have a community survey that is circulating right now. It's the survey that the Cuyahoga County Planning Commission worked so hard with members of our council and community to put together, and seems that a very strong response is being received, and it's going to remain open until the 23rd, and the thought is we may even leave it open for an extra week to make sure that people have it available to them. I know we're anxious to see what the results are, but I don't think another week is going to bend the arc on any plans for the city. So we're going to try to keep it open for another week, and we'll get an email out to that effect to the community still this week. So that's where we are on that. Dr. Wong.
Sorry, since I can't make the meeting on Monday, can we somehow for the committee meetings, is there any way to record them and publish them online, or do the YouTube thing for committee meetings as well? Or-
Sheila does not attend
No.
these committee meetings, so I don't know that that's going to be possible.
I am willing to record the audio for it, because I use it for transcripts anyway,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Yeah, I'll
There
just
you
give this.
And the other thing I wanted to mention is that in that meeting, we will have a video, which I do every year, that shows all the potential projects. And we'll also show that at the council meeting as well.
Yeah, so you'll see that at the council meeting. Okay, good. That all being said, does anyone else have? Okay, then we're going to take a vote on the motion, which has been seconded.
So, then your question.
Just a quick question on the community survey. Was
Sure.
that intended for each member of a household to answer, or just one answer per household?
For adults,
Yeah,
not
okay.
the children, but
Well,
for
these
husband
are
and
going
wife,
out.
each one to respond to
Okay.
it, that is available. Yes. And that being said, is there anyone else who wants to talk? We are going to take a roll call now to suspend, then we're gonna, Tony, thank God you're
I
sleeping.
think you should mention what you mentioned to me on the way in, and the text that you sent me.
Thank you very much, Tony. This is a very sad comment. We
Oh,
had some
yeah.
fun tonight, but there's a very sad event that happened in our community. Judge KJ Montgomery, a friend of mine for 35 years, a classmate of Tony Gentili's, who was sworn all of us in after her struggle with illness, has passed away yesterday. And I believe KJ was only, I don't know if she was barely 69 years old. So it is a tragic loss. We extend our heartfelt condolences to her family, to the members of the Shaker Court who were very close with KJ, and please keep all of them in your thoughts. So that's very sad news to have to announce. I know a number of people, that police, fire, a lot of people knew and appreciated KJ. She was just a wonderful lady, and it's too bad. So with that, we'll have a roll call.
Mr. Knoll,
Yes.
Ms. Atrop,
Thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Weltman,
Yes.
Mr. Dada.
Yes.
Mr. Lemay,
Yes.
Mr. Gentili,
Yes.
Dr. Wong.
Yes.
We are going to ask you folks to leave. We're going to take 5-10 minutes here. Guys, and we'll be back.
We're gonna stay here now.
We're going to stay right here. I would like Joe and
You don't know,